Good evening. I say good evening. It is good evening. It's 5 o'clock. How are we all? Welcome back. Sunday. It's pretty chill. It's been a relatively long day for me today. I've been up for a while. I've been at a oh, don't turn that up. I've been at a flea market this morning, which was interesting. Lots of interesting stuff. Bought a fancy chessboard. That's always nice. But yeah, we're back, and I'm low-key half asleep. But anyway, so today the plan is we're going to be working on some visual stuff, I think. Hello Axel, hello. Nice to see you again, my guy. Yeah, we're going to be working on some visuals, I reckon, doing some animation work. I'll walk you through stuff that's happened since last stream, because as we know, or as those of you who are at the last stream know, there were some technical difficulties with Unity. I have since raised a bug report with them, but basically the input system was just like, nah, you've already made a class with this name or something like that, and it was complaining about duplicate keys in a dictionary on Unity's compiler. So yeah, that kind of shafted everything, and I tried a lot of stuff. I tried re-importing, I tried deleting the library folder, completely rebuilding, getting rid of the input system, recreating all of my controls, and it was still complaining about this issue. So yeah, I just kind of migrated everything over to a new project, which was kind of a faff. That was a bit of a pain, but it's cool because what that's enabled me to do is, one, get the lobby stuff sorted out properly, and I'm like trying to look at the camera, but it's really bright because the light is right next to it. But yeah, it's allowed me to sort out the lobby system, so we actually have like a proper lobby with names and stuff in it, which is cool. I've stopped using the Steamworks library for the time being, just so we can test stuff a bit more easily on stream, and I can actually show you guys that the online is behaving and working properly. And I've messed about with animations a little bit, just to figure out how all of the animation stuff works, getting username generation, passing things through, and ultimately just kind of cleaning up the code a little bit. So yeah, it's decent progress, and we're going to continue with a couple of those bits today, mostly based on what's going on the Trello board, which, if you didn't know, you can actually follow along with this project's development on Trello outside of the devlogs for these videos and the live streams. There's a link in the description. There'll also be updates and regular things around demos that you can get your hands on, and releases for the game in the Discord server. Link in the description for that as well. But let's kind of talk a little bit about how this thing is going to release and what sort of the timeline is for stuff, I guess. Let's have a look at the Trello board. So, yeah, as I'm saying, there's a link in the description for the Trello board. This board is public. You can see it whenever, keep track of how everything's working, keep track of the milestones we've got, different releases. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about the... not so much the timeline, but the milestones for this release and when you guys will be able to get your hands on it and be able to start testing things out. So the way we're splitting projects up version-wise in the studio now is in major, minor, and patch versions. The idea is that we'll release minor version releases as like beta streams. And then major version releases will be official releases. So major version 1.0 will be the first release of this game onto Steam. Prices and stuff, I'm undecided as to whether it's going to be free or if it'll be like a $5. Probably won't be more than a $5 because it's a small scope game. I don't intend on going too deep on or too crazy on things. But the first release will be version 0.1.0. That will be the first minor version release. That will be published as a public alpha demo in the Discord server. So if you want to get your hands on it, make sure you join into the server down below if you're not already, and you'll be able to get your hands on that. At the moment, we are working on version 0.0.1, first patch version, which is the multiplayer foundation. This is like in-dev version, just getting everything set up for multiplayer stuff to work. So today my plan is, and this is going to be a slightly shorter stream because I've got to make sure I can have some dinner, but we are going to be hopefully finishing up some scene management stuff, making sure stuff is moving over. I'm actually going to move my game pawn into testing, because we basically have all of that done now, which is cool. And yeah, we'll spend some time working on our game manager a little bit, see if we can get some of the game loop logic in place, and get things loading properly so that we can join into games. If we lose a game, it will send us back to the lobby. Yeah, it should be good. And we'll play around with some animations as well, depending on how quickly we can get the code done. Some of you will probably be a little bit excited to see if you're an OG member. We've got this character design back. It's a revamp of the Echo character design, the one and only art style that I can seem to execute. But this is cool. This is the kind of style I want to go for the game. Sort of storybook cut out characters type thing. I'm currently sort of weighing up whether I want to keep it completely top down or if I want to go for the kind of 2.5D Paper Mario / Don't Starve look for the game. But at least for the time being, this player model that we've got here is going to be the one that we're playing with. And yeah, let's get straight into it, I suppose. So menu's looking nicer now. We've got a bit of progress here. I'm going to just do a quick build and show you guys what we've got going on, so that we can kind of get a feel for changes that have happened in the project. And the window is going to be small, I apologize for that, but you'll be able to see things working across the network as far as the lobby goes. So let's host a game in the editor, shall we? I'm going to go ahead and hit my host game button. Before that, though, we can see we've got the host join and quit button. We have a version number in the menu now. As I said, current version is 0.0.1 underscore indev. Currently in development. We're not even in alpha yet or pre-alpha because we've only been developing for like a week. So go ahead and host the game, and now we have a lobby. We can see this is my lobby. Your username pops in here. We can ready up and ready down, and it will change the color of our username in the game. Let's just full screen this so it's a more clear on screen. And because I'm the host, I also have this start game button. If I go ahead and join in another player, we can see this player has been added to the list as well. All of the usernames are currently procedurally generated because we're not using Steam, like I say, and I don't want to mess around too much with like a username management system or anything like that. But we can see over on this other player, we don't have the start game button because we aren't the host. We can just ready up and ready down. And as the host, I can't start the game unless all players in the lobby are ready. We still have our functionality for leaving the lobby, and that will take us out. And of course, if the host leaves the lobby, it closes the lobby for everyone, and we get pushed back to the main menu. So yeah, all looking very good. We have a quit button that works as well. And things are going nicely. Dornosaur, hello. How's it going, my guy? Nice to see you around. Glad you could make it. Continuing with development at the moment on this multiplayer game. First thing on the agenda is getting the game to actually do stuff when we start, because you'll notice if I press the play button right now and hit the host game button, don't need to join anything. Oh my god, it's generated my name. Look at that. Just the Polish equivalent. Okay, so if we hit start game, nothing actually happens. We get a log out saying that we're starting the game, but there's no logic in there to shift the scene over and actually put us into the game scene, spawn in our player and get us started. So we're going to code some functionality for this. Let's talk about how this is all working first of all. So a lot of it is the same as before. We're just using the kind of default components here. We've got a player spawner which spawns in our player network object. As before, the player network object is like a data holder. It just holds all the information about our current player. It is not in any way formally tied to a physical object that we control in the game. It's just a thing for storing our username, storing our ready state, if we're in the lobby, data about the player connection and stuff like that. Our player pawn, or the thing that we're controlling, is completely separate. We just pass through input from there. So like I say, we're using the player spawner to spawn in that player network object. We're using the default scene component from Fish Networking to move between our main menu and our lobby scene when we join a game or host a game. And that's it. There's nothing else going on really. So in terms of the lobby view, things are working similarly to how they were before. We have our player network object when it starts on the server. So again, on start server, anyone who wasn't here last time or who doesn't remember, this method gets called on the server when the object is initialized on the server. So we just do a quick check to say if there's no game manager instance, we'll create one and spawn the game manager on the network because we want it as a network object. And then afterwards we'll add ourselves to the game manager's player list to make sure we're being tracked and set our username to some random generation. This is not final code. In fact, I might just add a comment in here to do not final, need to replace with Steam username when integrating with Steamworks. Cool. So that's all good. Client side, so on start client, when the object is initialized on the client, we are going to check if we're not the owner, we won't do anything. Otherwise, we're caching the local instance as a singleton so that we can access our local player that we have ownership of from anywhere else. And then we initialize our UI lobby view. Similar kind of thing on the stop server side. We do the base logic, remove ourselves from the game manager's list, and then if we have a controlled pawn and the pawn has been spawned on the network, this part is quite important because if the thing hasn't been spawned yet, then we can't despawn it, and there's no need to despawn it because when the scene is unloaded it will get deleted because it's not being stored. But if it has been spawned and it's not equal to null, we'll despawn our controlled pawn and make sure that it's set to null. And then the rest of the stuff is all utility methods and RPCs. So method for toggling our is ready state, method for leaving the lobby. Again, we've got a to do here for when we're using Steamworks. We will leave the Steam lobby to make sure no errors happen there. We have some server-side code for starting the game, which is this is what we're going to be doing in just a second to make sure everything's behaving properly. And then we've got a couple of RPCs, like I say, for changing the ready state of the player and for spawning in a player pawn. So, final piece of code, the actual lobby view itself. So this is how the lobby UI works, because something that I've emphasized before, you shouldn't be networking any of your UI code. All of the network code should be separate. Your views should be in their own class and not broadcast across the network because it's just bad practice. It's inefficient. Keep all of your UI code local. So we've got a few references to each of our buttons. A couple of references to some UI elements, one for the player list transform, so this is where the list where the player names go, and one for the player name display prefab. This is the piece of text that we spawn in when a new player joins, and a couple of colors for what the name text should look like when it's ready and what it should look like when it's not ready. And then we've got a private list, which actually I think I can make this read only, which will just keep track of the name display objects in the screen. So when we initialize the UI, we simply add the listener for the ready and leave lobby button. This just looks at the instance of our player network object and assigns the right methods. And if we remember, player network object initializes this UI. So none of this code is going to be run until we have the instance, so there's not going to be any issues there. Next thing, we do a check to see if we're the host. If we are, we'll set up our start game button. If we're not, we disable our start game button, and then we just run the base initialize, which simply sets initialized on the UI to true. On destroy, just removing all our listeners, clean up, make sure we don't fire any double events if we come back. And then the last thing is just updating the state of things. So we update our player list, which we'll look at that method in a moment. And if we're the host, we will set the start button's interactable state to be equal to if all of the players are ready, using link for this there. So update player name list. This does a check basically to see what the state is compared to the game manager. If we have less displays than there are players on the game manager, we'll create a new item. If we have more, then we'll remove an item. And if it's the same, we'll update our items. And this happens on the late update to make sure all of our information is up to date. Creating the player item, pretty simple. We spawn in our prefab, set the parent of this object to our player list transform, not maintaining its position in world space, and then we add that new item to the player list. For removing, we do the opposite. We just get the last thing in the list, remove it from the list, and destroy the game object. And finally, for updating, we iterate over all of our player name displays, set the text equal to that player's username from the game manager, and set the color equal to the ready color or the not ready color based on if that player is ready. Very quick, speedy overview of how LightCode's working. Yeah, if you have any questions, let me know in chat. I've got a question from Dornosaur here. How does Fish networking work exactly? Are you hosting this game through Steamworks? Sort of. So Fishnet is just another high-level API, much like Mirror or Photon. I've only found it recently. It's a pretty new framework, but it's very similar to Mirror, just with a lot better features and a bit more stable. It's also got much better performance on general benchmarks as well. And it's the only free high-level networking API in Unity that ships with client-side prediction and server-side reconciliation as a free feature. So that's really powerful for when you're making competitive games, or even if you just want to dabble with it to make your code a bit more clean and make the service that you're making a bit more reliable. In terms of the way the hosting works at the moment, the transport I'm using is the Tugboat transport. This is just the default Fishnet transport, but it does have a Steamworks transport or a Steam transport, which works using Steam's new Steam sockets networking peer-to-peer connection. And we will eventually be switching that over, which is a really easy thing to do. It's just a case of adding in a transport manager on our network manager object in the scene and specifying our transport to be the Steam transport once I've imported that into the project. But yeah, as far as the actual code works as well, once Steamworks is integrated, all of the networking is basically exactly the same as it would be normally. There's not any extra funky stuff that we need to do. Only things like grabbing usernames, which is all just Steam API stuff, and hosting the lobby as well, because when you connect to someone through Steam sockets, you actually connect with the Steam ID of the hosting user for your connection address, rather than an IP address like you would using Tugboat or the default one for Mirror or whatever. I've got a message out. I'm not even can't do logic programming, but a thing that does Unity using a certain language. I'm not sure I understand the message, I'm afraid. But please do clarify. Yeah. Dornosaur definitely would highly recommend checking out Fishnet. It's really nice to work with, especially if you've used Mirror before or looked at Mirror before. It's very, very similar, just a little bit more friendly. So let's get into actually starting our game. So what we want to do when we start the game, and I've done this in a very sort of weird roundabout way, we could probably make it a little bit easier on ourselves. But we have a method on the game manager called start game, and this will be run on the server because only the host can trigger the start game method, and the host is obviously the server as well as a client. So we will set up the logic for this basically, which is going to be to cache all of our player objects, make sure they don't get deleted, and then load a new scene using the scene manager in Fish Networking. We also need to make sure that our player network objects are subscribed to the on-scene load event from that. Or as like an on-load complete event. We've got the documentation open here so I can keep an eye on it. So that when the thing is loaded, we can actually spawn ourselves in a player pawn on the server and keep an eye on it. Have I made any concept art? No. No, I haven't. We have this little guy. Anyone who's been on the channel before will recognize this character design. He's very similar to the character I had for a project I was working on a while ago called Echo. He doesn't have arms for a very specific reason, and that's going to come down to when we get onto like item usage, which I'll probably do in the next live stream on Tuesday. But yeah, I want to go for a kind of storybook cutout flat style aesthetic for this, and we'll add some depth and some glowing things to spice things up, but very basic, because I'm not an artist. I'm not very good at art. Kind of programming, including understanding the logic of programming, but always interested to make a game. Well, I definitely encourage you to keep trying. Programming's one of those things that it's like things will just click eventually. Like for me with netcode, I've been trying to learn how to do networking code for years, and it's only just kind of clicked in my head recently that the objects themselves aren't the client or the server, the machine is, or the connection to a thing is the client or the server, and you can have objects which have both client code and server code, and it's a mind blower. But definitely, yeah, if you're interested in learning more about how to do that logic, please do subscribe to the channel. I'm planning on doing a lot more tutorials around things on Unity, some basic stuff, and I've got a few courses and beginner tutorials in the works as well, which definitely, hopefully, should be worth checking out in the very near future. So yeah, keep the eyes peeled. Okay, let's get the start game button working. So once all the players are ready and we press the start game button, I'm going to leave my debug in for the moment. We want to load the main game scene. So I tell you what, let's actually have a reference here to the scene that we want to load, which I think I can do like this, and then we'll have a public string game scene like so. So I think what that means I can do now, and that's a if I'm not mistaken on my game manager, game manager prefab, sorry, yeah, we can now just drag and drop a scene right into here, which is really nice. So that scene attribute, again, similar feature to something that is in Mirror, allows us to, yeah, just drag and drop a scene in the inspector instead of having to reference the string name, so that's handy. Cool, so let me remember how all of this works. Oh, brilliant, nice, cool. Well, yeah, hopefully I'll have some more tutorials out for you soon. If you have any requests for tutorials, please shoot me a message over in the Discord server or leave a comment down below. Definitely leave a comment rather than leaving it as a message in the live chat, because I will forget. But if it's written down somewhere permanent, like the Discord server or the comment section, I'll make sure to add it to my list of things that I will create. So, loading scenes, here we go, yeah. Nice and easy, we just set up some scene load data and then load the scene, which is nice. So we can make a var scene load data equals, and then I think it was new scene load data. And we'll pass in our game scene as the argument. And I'm going to leave some space in the middle before we then go scene manager, which should be the fish networking one. Yep. Dot load global scenes and pass in the scene load data like so. So I'm going to press play now, and we're going to see Wait, hold on. Is that asynchronous? Yes, I think it probably is. So what I'm going to do... no, I'm not going to do anything yet. I'm not going to do anything yet. We'll keep it just like this. So when we start the game, we just load a new scene. Jobs are good. If I'm thinking correctly, when I hit the play button, host the game, ready up, when I hit start game, it will load us into our game scene, but nothing's going to happen. We're going to end up deleting our player. Yeah, here we go. So lots of little bugs going on here. Only one event system allowed, more than one global thing. We've got lots of errors going on basically. And this is because we haven't set up any configuration for our actual loading, so the game doesn't know that we want to unload the scene that we're currently in. It doesn't know that we want to preserve our player objects. It doesn't know a whole bunch of stuff, so we're gonna go ahead and fix that. So we can set some things on the scene load data here. So we can say something like scene load data dot replace scenes equals replace option dot all. And that means that we're going to unload all of the scenes that we've currently got in place and just replace them with the new one. Whoops. So yeah, that's kind of handy. And actually, yeah, I've just noticed if we hover over this here, we can see it says object initialization. All my days, what happened to my accent then? Object initialization can be simplified, which basically just means we can take this new scene load data and just chuck in some curly brackets and specify all of our extra options in here. So that's cool. So if we press play now, go ahead, press play. We will host the game. Ready up and hit start. There we go. We've now moved scenes correctly. We don't have any of our loading, unloading issues or duplicate things, but we've now got this problem here. All of our network objects for ID, it hasn't found anything. It hasn't unspawned anything. Our player has been deleted from the scene because we haven't told the thing that we want to keep it around. So let's make sure we do that. We'll go in here. We'll say for each player, not player like that, player network object player, and I'm going to call it player knob, which, yes, kind of sus, but abbreviations. In fact, we'll do knob in capitals because it's all starters. And this is going to be in players. So for all of the players that we have in our game, we want to say scene load data dot move network objects dot add. Nope. Wait. Oh no, we don't even need to do a for each. Haha. Yeah, we can just say scene load data dot move network objects plus equals, first of all, this. Wait, how can I do this? How can I do this? Oh, no. Okay, yeah. So, looking back at the documentation here, let's look at the scene load data. Always look at documentation. It's very important. So, yeah, move network objects. This is network objects that can be moved when loading new scenes. So this is basically the equivalent of don't destroy on load. But for a specific scene load event. So it's not like there's another parameter called isGlobal on network objects, which is the network equivalent of don't destroy on load. But I'm pretty sure you can't set it on scene network objects or things like that. Yeah. So we want to add everything that we want to keep into this move network objects list for this scene change. And it's an array, so we need to assign to it directly rather than doing anything like .add. So what we're going to do, I'm actually going to create a var moved knobs equals new list of network objects. Yep, that's all good. Yeah, cool. So we'll say move knobs.add, and we'll pass in this because we want to make sure we move the game manager. Or I guess we have to do get component. Oh wait, I think there's a default default thing that we can use. Let me pop open the API documentation. And I want to look at network behavior. And I want to see, what I'm looking for is if there's a default reference to our network object. Yes, there is. I could say this .network object, but it's kind of pointless. Don't need to. So I can just say add network object. And then I can say players dot for each, I think. Oh wait, no, there isn't a for each method, or is it only on arrays? No, I can't remember how to use the for each. So yeah, we'll just do a for each var player knob in players. Moved knobs dot add player knob dot network object, and then we're going to say scene load data dot moved network object equals moved knobs dot to array. Make sure we have that as an array. There we go. And now it should move our players as well. Let's just test that to make sure it's working, and hopefully we should see that we don't have these issues for network object 0, which would probably be our player, and network object 1, which would be our game manager. We should see that those things don't throw us errors anymore. Ready up, start game. Boom, no more errors. We can see in our game scene we still have our player network object and we still have our game manager, so this is good stuff. Now let's make it so that when the scene load is completed for all of our players, I guess, we want to spawn ourselves in a player pawn. To answer the question what this game is going to be about, this is a kind of like a tower defense game where you are trying to keep a fire alight. If the fire goes out, the game is over, but the instead of it being like a top-down God-style game where you just get currency and build towers, you play as a character in the world where you build towers by farming resources. So chopping down trees, mining stone, killing creatures. You get different resources so you can build different weapons, different towers, and enable yourself to protect the fire a bit more with some kind of survival game elements in there as well, just to make it more challenging and annoying. Waterflow, welcome, my friend. How's it going? We are currently setting up some gameflow code, and I think I've been coding for 15 minutes and we've currently got scenes loading, that's a plus. Cool. So we want to spawn in a player object. We basically want to call this server spawn player pawn method, except actually we're not going to call that. We're going to call start game, player start game, and this will call our server spawn player pawn method, which actually I don't need to do this as an RPC. I can just run it straight in here because we're already on the server. We don't need to call it to the server, and we know what the owner is, because this owner parameter is respective to whichever client is responsible for the spawning, or whichever connection. Client connection is responsible for spawning the object. So in the case of the player network object, it's whichever player has joined. So yeah, we can actually just do this. So what I want to do is go on here and say player, whoops, I want to check the event for my scene loading. So we can see on this lovely little image here in the fishnet documentation, we have all of our events on the server. So I guess we want to look at this on queue end. So basically, to explain the flow, Fishnet uses Unity Scene Manager loading in the background, and it fires off a load of different events for when different stuff gets loaded in. So you can actually add multiple scenes to a queue. You can stack scenes, which, for context, that would be useful in the case of a game like an MMO, like World of Warcraft, with dungeons. And if you want to have different parties in the same dungeon at different times, you obviously want to make sure those dungeons are the same base dungeon for each of the different parties, so they're like reset for each different party that joins the dungeon, instead of it being already completed when the new party joins. So you can load the same instance of that scene multiple times on the same server, so that each of those different clients connected to different scenes can have that same experience. I understand I didn't explain that the best, but effectively it means different players can experience the same thing on one server without other client connections interfering with that. But generally speaking, the way it works, you have a queue of scenes. So when we finally call the load with all of these scenes in the queue, it fires the on queue start. If a scene is loading, we then go through these different processes, either loading or unloading the scene, depending on if it's loading or not. When one scene is loaded, we do onload start. We then get a callback for the percentage of that load. And then when the scene is loaded, we call onload end. Same thing for the opposite. We say onload start. We don't worry about a percentage for unloading because we just want to unload the scene. And finally, we do on unload end. Then there's a callback to the clients to trigger our different actions over there. Because we want to synchronize the scenes across clients, obviously. So that actually triggers the loading on the client. Finally, actually, you know what? We might want to be looking on the client side. So on the server, yeah, so my toss up here, just so to keep you guys on with my train of thought, when the server loads the scene, I don't really want to start the game until all the clients are ready. So we want to make sure that we keep an eye on the client callback for on queue end, because this is where we actually want to spawn in our player on the client side, where the client calls our server spawn pawn method. For the time being, let's start off by just making it so that when the server has loaded the scene, we'll spawn a pawn for all of our clients, for that client connection as well. So we can go on here and say scene manager dot on queue end plus equals, and we're going to do a lambda expression because I'm pretty sure this passes back some data. Let's go have a look. Only available on server and indicate when a client is being added to a scene or being removed from a scene. Both events are only invoked after the client has fully... cool. Okay, yeah, so we'll be fine. So the client is going to have fully loaded or unloaded the scene itself. So this is fine to do it. Both events contain the same structure, which has the following information. What is the structure? What is the structure? That's what I want to know. What I want to do it as a lambda expression so that we can go ahead and just call player knob, which let's rename this to be a lowercase p because it's a local variable, dot start game, like so. Oh, wait, can I... Does it not actually pass stuff through? Oh, fantastic. Cool. Yeah, so we can just add that as a listener. We'll load the scene, and then we'll do... we'll have to figure out a way to remove this. Actually, yeah, we can do that very easily. If we then head back over onto our player network object, we start the game for the thing, spawn in our pawn, set the controlling object, and then we'll say scene manager, which hopefully is the fishnet manager. Yep. Dot on queue end minus equals player start game. And that will just remove the event on this object from that queue. And this is only running on the server, so we know it's all going to be run in the same place as well. Let's give this a test, and hopefully we should see that when we press the play button, host the game, start the game, we should have a player pawn object spawn in our scene. Ready up, start game, boom, there we go. We got our little boy who can run around and do stuff, and we've got our username above as well. That's really cool. And that was really easy. That's taken us, what, 20 minutes to get all of that working? So that's just evidence of how even someone like me who doesn't completely understand what I'm doing, I can get Fish Network to do what I want it to do. I've said that before. We've actually built the test build, player join game, or let's do player start game test. So let's actually build this out, host a game with multiple clients in, and see that everything still works out. How's everyone coping so far, by the way? Do we have any other questions? I've got chat pulled up next to me here so I can see if there's any stuff going on, and we can talk about any details if you're more interested. So I'm actually going to host my game on the client instance that I've got here, or the built instance. The text is small on the screen even for me, so I imagine you guys definitely can't see it. We'll probably up the resolution in the next build, but we'll join the game over here. Yep. Got both of our people in the lobby. I can ready up over here and it changes the right text still. Text is updated correctly here. Let's ready up on my client or my build and start the game. And there we go. Okay. So we've got, everything's working well on the server. On the client, we've got some errors thrown. Got some null reference exceptions, object not set to reference, update player details, get component, player name tag manager. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Let me take a look at why this is happening. So we've basically got a problem that it can't find the player pawn name tag manager on our player pawn. It's definitely there. That's my assumption anyway. It could be that new val is null, but that would be weird. I'm gonna just check this out real quick. I'm going to do a debug.log new val.username. And we will see if this logs anything out. But we've still got all of our networked movement is behaving correctly. We can walk things around in here. Stuff moves around. It's not going to work now because I've just completely changed the code. But let's just shut that down. Shut this down. Boot a new instance. We are desktop, Unity projects, Children of the Fire, builds. Start game test. Whoops. We're going to host on here again because I want to be able to see the logs. I'll just ready up by default. Oop, don't want to host. Don't want to host. Leave. I want to join. There we go. That did fire an error to say we couldn't start the server. It did actually join us in, and we'll ready up on here as well. Both ready. Start the game. Null reference exception. Yeah, so the new value is actually null. That's very interesting. To explain what's happening here, basically what I want to do, I've got this this sync var. So a sync var, for anyone who's not dabbled in netcode before or who's interested, this is basically a value that can be set on the server and is then synchronized to clients. When the value is changed, it will also call a method, a callback method, taking in that new value, so that we can make use of it and actually do some things with it. So the problem we've got, for some reason, when this is being changed, our player network object, our controlling network object, is actually being set to null. And so when we try to get the username of it, it's giving us an error. It's saying we've got a null reference exception. That's very curious. I have no idea why that would be the case. We can see that all of our movement is behaving correctly. This is being synchronized over the network, and we have all of the rotation and movement behaving correctly, which is very, very cool. So let's try and figure out why that's the case. And we could do this by walking through, I guess. So I have a feeling it's going to be something to do with the execution that we've got here. But no, it shouldn't be. So on the client, we get that update. So this is getting set to something. In fact, let's just try controlling network objects. Rather than trying to access this new value or anything like that. We've got this code runs on the server, and this is fine that it's only running on the server, because again, these are sync vars, so as soon as they're updated on the server, it propagates to clients as well. We're spawning the object all over the place with the correct owner connection. We know that because the movement's working correctly. I basically have my movement set up so that if we're not the owner of the object, we're not going to do anything. We just let the client responsible for their thing do all of their movement, because this is a cooperative game. It's not competitive. We don't need to worry about server authority. We can just have the clients control themselves. If anyone's going to try and cheat, it'll only ruin their own experience. Unlike in a multiplayer competitive game where someone cheating ruins the experience for other players. So you want to make sure that you're moderating the way that people are moving or trying to do things on the server to make sure people aren't cheating or trying to break the game. Yeah, so we are going to try ignoring these values. These are a requirement for a sync var on change callback. You have to have old value of the same type, new value of the same type, and then a boolean for if it's the server. So I'm just gonna ignore these values completely. They still need to be there, but we're just gonna go straight ahead and use controlling network object. And I suppose it could be worth putting a null check in there just in case, but for the time being, I'm just going to see if that works. So let's go ahead and build this out again. We'll replace that. See how this goes. Host a game over here. Got a username of Taka. Nice. Join the game over here. Taka and Taksun. Nice. Ready up on both. Hit the start game. Still null. Okay, so we know this value is being set to null for some reason. That doesn't make any sense. So somehow on the server, this object doesn't exist. That is very strange. That, yeah, I don't understand what's going on there. Because obviously the object exists. It's right here. Controlled pawn is null as well. So it's null on both of our clones, not in server. This is the interesting thing. It's... Oh, actually, you might be onto something there. Okay, let's give this a go. So, if let's host the game over here, and see what we see. If I start game, so I mean, to be fair, I know everything's updating here correctly because we've got the username. There's no error. So I'll play a pawn. Yep, we've got our controlling network object, and on the player network object we also have the controlled pawn. So it's just on the client. For some reason these values aren't getting updated correctly. Yeah, that's really strange. That is really strange. Because like I say, we know this is working on the host side. We've just got problems with the client. So let's see how this looks from the host. Oh my god, did we no, we got Jacker and Jackman. Okay, so yeah, because of the fact that it's working on the server, we know that this code is running correctly. And because it's running correctly on the server, that means these values are also getting updated correctly. Oh, wait. No. So my thought here, these events are only invoked after the client has fully loaded or unloaded the scene. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong event. That's funny. I'm looking at this one. Yeah, so I imagine now that I've actually read the documentation properly, our problem is that the thing is loaded on the server. So we run the code, we do all the propagation, but the client hasn't loaded yet. And so it can't spawn itself, and this is fine. We can figure out a way to fix this. So basically what we need to do, we need to make sure that the player only starts the game for themselves when they've finished loading their scene, which means we have to somehow get a hold of this this on queue end callback on the client. So we need to use an observer RPC. We'll have this be an observer's RPC. So okay, to explain the difference, let's go and look at the documentation quickly. Oh, did Unity just crash? Great, thanks Unity, appreciate it. That's because of my code, because I tried to kill the server when there's still people connected and I haven't set up anything to handle that, so it's like, yeah, starts complaining. But yeah, basically an RPC stands for remote procedure call. This is a way of calling code from one location onto another location, for example from the server onto clients or from the client onto server. So far we have looked at the server RPC, which is the latter of those things. It's a method that we can run from a client by default with ownership, and it will execute that code on the server. We want to do the opposite. On our server, when we do the game manager start game, we want to send a message to our clients to tell them that we want them to start the game too. That way, we can tap into the scene manager's event queue and say when the queue is finished loading on the client, we'll actually spawn in our player objects and do all the start game stuff. And that actual spawning process can be sent as an RPC to the server to make sure we're spawning stuff on the server and all the rest of it. So instead of going here and saying scene manager.onQEnd plus equals that, we're going to get rid of this completely. We are instead going to say I changed my mind. We're going to keep that. We want to make sure that we still run this once the scene is loaded on the server. And when it's loaded on the server, we can... I just heard myself back saying that. I think, yeah, once it's loaded on the server, we can tell the clients to then deal with themselves. So we're going to say player null.player start game. And that is fine. So we'll go back to our player network object. Instead of this being server, we're going to tag it with observers RPC. I'm actually going to rename this method to client start game. Like so. And then we can remove, this is going to run on the client now. Let's take this piece of code out of here. Let's grab all of this out of here. We are going to make our server RPC again, public void server spawn player pawn. Paste all our code back in. So this is actually going to spawn our pawn on the server. And then we just need to do scene manager dot on QEnd plus equals server spawn player pawn. And we'll also throw in a little if not is owner, then we'll return. I need to get rid of those brackets. And before we do that, let's yeah, no, that's fine, that's fine. We can go back in here, scene manager dot on QEnd minus equals, so unassign our callbacks, client start game. Very cool. So yeah, to walk through what we've done now, our game manager is doing everything exactly the same. We start the game, or we say we're starting the game if all of our players are ready, set up the load data to replace all of our scenes, initialize our move network objects, but this time we are actually assigning a observer RPC to our players for when the scene load is completed. And actually, I think we don't even need to do this. We don't even need to do this in here. We can just call the method on the player. Yeah, we can just call the method on the player because that's all it's doing. I don't think I actually need to have the owner thing either. We can just... we can do it for all of them. No, we definitely only want to do it if we're the owner. If not is owner, we return. So yeah, we can actually just call this. Instead of assigning it as a callback, we can just say player knob.start game, client start game. That will send a message to all of our clients. I'm trying to remember, with observer RPCs, do we take in... Observer RPCs allows the server to run logic on clients. Yep. Only observing clients will get the run, get and run this logic. Yep. So we need to make sure we have a network observer on our network player thingamajig, network player object thingamajig. Geez. So it looks like we need to pass in. Oh no, we don't need to pass in a number. Actually, I mean, the best way to check is probably if I just head over to the console and see if it gives us an error. Cool, no error. We also want to make sure this RPC doesn't require ownership. Whoops. Oh wait, no. Of course that's not a thing. Include owner. In some instances, you might want the owner of an object to ignore the RPC. We don't want that. We only want the owner to pay attention to it, so we can not add anything. Cool. Okay. So let's go ahead onto our player network object. We will add on. Oh, I've already added it. Fantastic. Our network observer is there. Let's give it a test. I need to build first. So yeah, final time, let's explain what's actually happening. Game manager starts the game. It tells the players that it can start the game on the client. What this does is then tells our, on the client side for our player network object, we add a listener for our scene manager on queue end to add in the server someone player, so that when the scene is loaded on the client and the object is initialized on the client, we can spawn in our player object on the server. It would probably be good to track if a player has been spawned on here as well, so that we don't start the game until all players have spawned, but that's kind of up to the game flow. I'm not sure if it's that important for this time so far, so we will just hit build, give it a run, and see how things are working. Everybody give me some upvotes, some fingers crossed, I guess, in chat. We need all the luck we can get. Let's host the game. Hit play over here. We will join the game from our Unity editor. Ready up on both. Ready up. Start the game. Ooh. Okay. It's only spawned one player. And it's only spawned it for my connected clients. So that means the server isn't getting a thing, isn't getting a message. But the server is also a client. Oh, phone fell over. The player can move. Everything's still behaving correctly, but for some reason we're missing a player. So we've got two player network objects, just one of them, which I assume is the server connection. In fact, I know it's the server connection because we can't move on the server. We can only move on the client. So this belongs to our client object. And actually, if I hit stop here, oh, that crashed. Yeah, so it doesn't look like it's spawning in a player for our server anymore. let's have a look back at our events again. It's this okay, so yeah, taking a look at this again. So we do all the server stuff, we have on queue end here. When we send the action to our client, the client actually completes the load of the scene and then sends a complete action to the server, which cause an event called on client present change end, or on client present change start. Let's have a look at those. Yeah, that's these ones. What's the update visibility? I imagine that's just a thing for updating the visibility on thing. But yeah, this on client presence change end, that tells us what scene the client's in. Scene connection and added. Added will be true if being added to the scene or false if being removed. Cool. So yeah, we can probably keep track of this. Yeah, we can probably keep track of this somehow. And it has the connection as well. Cool. Okay, so we want to wait. We basically want to wait on the server for each of these clients to be present in the scene before we spawn a player for them. So actually, what we can probably do is say, let me get rid of this RPC. We'll get rid of this as well. Oh wait, no, I think I've just been really stupid. I think it's this. Should not be there. Let me test this real quick. So what my theory now at the moment is that because I was unassigning the callback here, the first time this is run, this isn't listening for it anymore, so the other client doesn't get the message. Although now that I think about it, that doesn't make any sense because the server would logically connect first. But you know, we'll test it to see how it's going, and then if that doesn't work, we'll just set up a system by which we listen on the game manager for when this client presence change end is fired. If added is true, then we can spawn. We can run the spawn pawn method, or the start game method. Yeah. We'll get to that when we get to it. Let's just build up first. Replace, and we'll see how this is going. I've got about 20 minutes left here, so this is probably going to be the last thing we do. Shame, I was hoping to do some animation, but you know, can't only do so much. Let's join over here, ready up. So we've got the client in the Unity editor, we've got the host in our build, start the game. Yeah, still only got one person. And we've actually got this warning being thrown saying that we cannot complete the action because the client is not active. Let me try something real quick. If I host the game here, ready up and start. Yeah, just nothing happens. Nothing happens. So yeah, we need to do this in a different way. So I'm going to take all of this again. I'm going to move this out. We are just going to run it on the server. We're going to rename this method. We're going to get rid of that callback first of all. going to get rid of this server RPC, like I say. We are going to change this to server only code. We are going to rename it to player start game. And yeah, we'll do all of that. We are going to call this method, going to have a private void spawn player for, or start player game for connection. We are going to take in all of these parameters. So we need a scene. No, scene. Guess maybe it'll be a string scene. So we need a scene, connection, and a boolean for added. So network connection, or what's connection going to be called? Documentation. I would appreciate it if you listed what these types are. Oh wait, I mean we can make this quite easy. We can just go on my game manager and say on what's it called again? Or scene manager on client presence, yeah. Scene manager dot on client presence change end plus equals start player game for connection. Let's just do it like that, and then this is going to complain because we need to we just take a cool client presence change event args whoops. So we can say if args dot added for each player network object knob in players, if player if knob dot connection is equal to args dot connection, then we will do knob dot start game. Cool. Nope, I don't want to hit play. Well, actually, yeah, let's hit play. We'll host game, we'll ready up, and we'll start. Okay, we've spawned something for one player. We've got some error being thrown. Object ID 2 could not be found. We've got our game manager, we've got our player network object, and we've got our player pawn. I don't think there should be I don't think there should be a problem there, or I don't see why there should be a problem there. Let's build it and see what happens. If it behaves, if we don't get an error and everything kind of works properly, then I will just let it be. And kind of look into it more as we go. But here we go, let's host the game over here. We'll join the game from our Unity editor. ready ourselves up. Start the game. Okay. 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 Okay, something wacky has gone on there. I mean, this should be much more straightforward. I'm doing something really stupid right now. I must be. And we're still getting that null reference exception as well. Oh dear. Right. Okay. Yeah. I'm just doing something really stupid here. I must be. Oh, that is the really stupid something I'm doing. I was still calling start game on the player. Instead of just waiting for this to run. Let's try this again. I mean, it's still throwing that exception, which that's weird to me. I don't know why it should be throwing that exception, because our player, unless, why am I setting things to null on stop server? It makes me wonder if for some reason on stop server is being run. That would be weird. That would be weird if we were somehow stopping the server. I wonder if that's what's happening. If it's oh well, not that it's stopping the server, but the connection is stopping in some way, shape or form. For some reason it's firing that thing, because that's the only reason I could think it would be having this problem. I can't see anywhere else where this would be coming in as null, or where we'd be setting it to null, unless somehow yeah, I think that might be exactly the problem. No, we're never setting it to null. It's always being set to this. Even when we spawn. Yeah, why should that be null? Why are you null? It shouldn't be null. The thing is spawning on the server properly as well. We know that much. Yeah, we know this is being run on the server because it has to be run on the server. It can only be run on the server. We're not getting any warning. So that's cool. This is getting synchronized. We know it's all getting synchronized properly. We're instantiating the object and spawning it correctly with the correct owner because the movement behavior is all correct. It's literally just this bit here. Try doing it like that. Yeah, it's just somehow setting. It's somehow not setting the thing, or it is setting it, but it's setting it to null, which means this object is null, and that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. This code couldn't even be running if this thing was null. Oh, it's so confusing. It's so confusing. See if I'm missing anything on the yeah, so this will be called when this value changes for the server and for the client. There's something about spawning players. There's a specific event that needs to have been fired before we try and spawn anything. Let me take a look at, there's a video by the developers of Fishnet about the events, and I think this might be helpful. I think this is probably going to be useful.
When it comes to the scene manager, I'd say most people dive right in without looking at the events first, and in result may stumble around looking for a way to do something when their goal is easily achievable with the scene manager events.
Feels like me.
Because of this, before we cover all the options of the scene manager, we're just going to go over the events first. The first is on client loaded start scenes. This event indicates that a specific network connection or client has loaded initial scenes. The Boolean value indicates if this callback is occurring on the server or client. Since you can be both as host, this is an important distinction. If we take a quick look at the player spawner example, which spawns a prefab for the player when they connect, you can see that the spawn logic only runs if the event callback occurs as server. And since we're here, I strongly encourage you to not spawn any prefabs for a player or give a player ownership of any objects until this event is called. There are technical reasons for this, but I won't be going over them right now.
Wait.
Scenes. The Boolean value indicates if this callback is occurring on the server or client. Options of the scene manager, we're just going to go over the events first. The first is on client loaded start scenes. This event indicates that a specific network connection or client has loaded initial scenes. The Boolean value indicates if this callback is occurring on the server or client. Since you can be both as host, this is an important distinction. If we take a quick look at the player spawner example, which spawns a prefab for the player when they connect, you can see that the spawn logic only runs if the event callback occurs as server. And since we're here, I strongly encourage you to not spawn any prefabs for a player or give a player ownership of any objects until this event is called.
So the on client loaded start scenes is the important one for when we spawn stuff in. So let's have a look at the documentation at that event. Do we have this in this list anywhere? We don't. Calls every time a client loads the starting scenes for the first time. The start scenes would be any global scenes that I have set, or if no global scenes are set, then the scene that you are entering play into. Player spawner. Yeah, usage of the... Okay, let's take a look at this script. So this is another cool thing about Fishnet. It comes with a whole bunch of nice stuff that we can look at under examples, scripts. Wait. Scene manager. Here we go. Scripts. Do we have a player spawner? Or is it going to be this scene loader example? No, we said it was player spawner.cs. Let's see if we can just find this player spawn. Wait. Yeah, okay, let's pop this open and have a look. Cool, yeah, so we're initializing the network manager to say on client loaded start scenes plus equals scene manager underscore on client loaded start scenes. So yeah, that's this method here. If we're not the server, we return. Otherwise, we do all this jazz. So I know this event isn't getting fired though. Because we don't end up spawning in a new a new player. Otherwise, this, you know, every time we change scenes, this would spawn us in a new player. If there's no global scenes, add to default scene is true, then add only to default scene. Spawn in vote. Yeah, so I don't need to worry about this event. Yeah, I'm just really confused as to why it's ending up being null. Unless we want to run this first. So we spawn the pawn, or well, we instantiate the pawn, we update the pawn stuff, and then we spawn it, because on the player pawn, shouldn't make any difference though. Shouldn't make any difference. Let me just head back in here. I'm going to change this back to do our scene manager dot on queue end plus equals player knob dot start game. Don't need that. We'll get rid of this one. Get rid of that method, we don't need it anymore. Player network object. I want to make sure when the player is spawned, we no, I don't need to remove the thing quite yet. We'll worry about that in a sec. We'll do it in the on destroy or the on stop server. Say scene manager dot on queue end minus equals player start game. Make sure that's all good. No brackets. That can only run on the server, which is fine. That's how it should be. We're setting the data. We're spawning it. It should be propagating. It should not be null. If it's null, there's something really weird going on, and I'll have to call for help in the Fishnet Discord. Either way, this is going to be the last test we do because I am running out of time for today. But I'm keeping everything crossed that we see the results we want to see here. Gonna host a game in our build. Join the game from the thing, the editor. We will ready up on both. Start the game. That's interesting. This is very interesting. So it just hasn't spawned the object on the network this time. I am so confused. I'm so confused. I'm so confused. This is weird. This is weird. Okay, so this one that we've got here, this is our server. that's been spawned. On the server, it's updated everything correctly, but for some reason on the client, our other player network object, our punman, our client, hasn't updated its controlled pawn. That hasn't been set on the server. Why has that not been set on the... wait. I'm gonna try one more thing. Instead of doing it like this, let's make a private void start player games. And in here we'll say for each knob, var knob in players knob dot player start game. And instead of doing all of this, we'll just say scene manager dot on q end plus equals start player games, like that, rather than assigning all of these, because I'm wondering if it's maybe trying to run weird code from the trying to run the code from the client or something, and that's what's causing us issues, or there's some weird thing going on where this player start game method is just not firing correctly. But it's weird. For some reason this is ending up null, and I don't know why. Yeah, strange. Who can I test if it's working online? Currently, doing it like this is testing that it's working online. It's just connecting on localhost. But the principle is the same. If I was to supply it with an address and send a build to a friend and get them to test it, it would still connect. It would still run in the same way that it runs when I'm doing everything here. Eventually I'll link it all up with Steam and we'll see some things working through that. But this is everything that I'm doing here is testing it online. We've got all of the network behavior coming through. Yeah, this is just really weird. This is just really weird. I don't understand why it's ending up null. I can't think why that would be the case. I feel like I really want to figure it out, but I'm very tight on time. But this should not be null. I have no idea no idea how this is ending up as null, and also no idea how... Oh wait, no, I know why it's not spawning over the network. It's because this is throwing an error because it's saying it's null, but it shouldn't be null. Yeah. This is very weird. Sorry, you've said why. I'm not sure I remember which part of the stream you were saying why to. That's my bad for getting sucked in. Yeah, I don't understand how this is null. That's so weird. That's so weird. I mean, maybe I do want to spawn it first. That's fine. That stands to be logical. Also, if I do that, is it going to crash? No, it didn't crash my Unity editor, I think, because I disconnected. But yeah, so I instantiate it, I spawn it, that's all fine. Then we set our controlled pawn to be equal to that new thing that we've just instantiated and spawned. And we say controlled pawn, the new thing that we've just instantiated and spawned, is equal to, or our controlling network object is this. Let me try something here. I'm gonna debug.log username. No, I'm not, because that's just going to run on the server, and I know it's working on the server, it's just not working on the client. It's receiving null. Let me just do that for the time being, and we'll see if it does like a double update or something. Either way, I'm going to be asking about this in the Fishnet Discord server, because this feels odd. It feels odd that somehow it's setting a value and it's coming back as null. That's just weird to me. Ready up, let's start the game. Okay, so it's worked. It's just null for the... So what this is telling me is that for some reason, the player instance that we've got spawned by the server is not syncing. Okay. Last thing I'm gonna check, because I do need to go and cook me some food. But this on server boolean indicates if the callback is occurring on the server or on the client. Sometimes you may want to run logic only on the server or the client. The as server. So I want to only do this if as server is false. Which again is kind of weird, because this is going to run on the server and the client. I guess it will run twice on the server. But I don't want to update. I don't want to update it on a server. I only want to update it on the clients. Either way, still, I don't know why this would be null. I don't understand where it's getting null from. It should just be. It should just be getting the correct value. We spawn in our player. We do our start game for player username, spawn it, instantiate the thing, spawn the thing on the network, controlled pawn equals player pawn, and then the controlled pawn's controlling object equals this. And it's definitely setting that because otherwise our method wouldn't be running. So somehow this is null on clients. I don't understand. Let's give this another shot. Let's give it another shot. See what we get. Build. Build. Let's join from here. Oh, no, I haven't hosted a server yet. Lucky for me, the timeout is big. Ready up. Start the game. Yeah. It's just null. But now it's null for both. Why is it null for both of them now? What? I don't understand. What did I change? Oh yeah, I changed this to if not as server. Yeah, I don't know. I'm stumped. I'm gonna have to pull in some assistance from the wonderful people over in the Fishnet Discord. But anyway, I am unfortunately out of time for today. I've been pushing it a little bit actually time-wise, but thank you very much everyone for coming and stopping by the stream. We've made some decent progress. We have got things spawning across the network. We've got got almost correct behavior working. The lobby is functioning, players are moving, they can walk into each other, and it doesn't do anything weird with the physics. So we're in a good position for getting our game loop kicked off on Tuesday when we do the next stream. If you do want to help support the channel and get involved in testing this game as stuff happens, make sure to join the Discord server, link in the description for that, and be sure to subscribe to the channel as well. Yeah, thank you very much everyone for coming by, and I will see you in the next one. Sorry, Mr. Squidward, you just missed the stream, I'm afraid. I'm about to close up, but do feel free to watch it back. Next stream will be on Tuesday at 8 p.m. GMT, British Summertime time, Central Time, England time. But yeah, until then, hope you all have a wonderful morning, day, evening, afternoon, whatever time it is, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.